Do you struggle getting dates? Are you sick of apps? Do you struggle knowing how to be able to talk to girls when you even go on dates? Then maybe what you need is actually to explore speed dating. Joining me on the podcast today is Taylor O'Brien, co-founder and CEO of Candid, a Catholic speed dating virtual app. Yes, you heard that correctly. And in today's episode, we have a wonderful conversation about how speed dating fills this niche in between dating apps and meeting people locally. Taylor shares beautifully some wonderful tips about speed dating and dating in general that I think are going to be really helpful for you. And she also opens up about her own history with dating, which also includes a broken off engagement. So you're going to love this episode, and let's get into this conversation with Taylor O'Brien. Taylor O'Brien, welcome to the Always Hope podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I'm great.
Yeah, you bought a car today. I mean, that's pretty cool, right?
I did. Yeah, that was exciting. My husband and I, that was the first time we bought a car together, so that was fun. It was a new addition for us.
First big purchase in marriage. Is that what this is? Or?
We did buy a house
Okay, so you've
last
already
year, so
done that.
this was maybe second big purchase, but yeah, nonetheless, it was an experience for sure. Like we were talking about, buying a car is always something.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
But you guys survived it? You're all good in the O'Brien household?
Everyone is happy. O'Briens are good. Yeah, we feel like we got a good deal. We gave it our best battle, so.
Yeah, there you go. The
But thank you.
finagling that has to happen with these guys.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So to all my listeners who are used car salesmen, bless you. And may you have extra time in purgatory. Sorry.
Sure.
Well, we had the pleasure of meeting at Seek this past year at Salt Lake City. Shout out to the intentional single gals, Megan Elfeld and Maria Spears, for putting us in touch. And got to know the good work that you're doing with Candid, speed dating, and the app. So I think the place for us to start, why don't we just begin with talking about Candid dating? Tell the listeners what it is. What are you trying to accomplish? Yeah, like what are we doing? What are we doing with Candid?
Yeah, I'd love to. So in summary, what it is we've created is a Catholic speed dating platform that has no swiping and no profiles. So users can create an account, and once your account is approved by one of our team members, you are able to see a list of events that you can sign up for in areas to meet people who live in the same area near you. We do them regionally. We host them bi-weekly, and you're able to sign up for one of our events to meet Catholic singles who have something who have something in common with you. And our algorithm matches you with people who would be most compatible to you based on interest, age, like I said, location. So we run our events bi-weekly. It's all virtual. And what happens is you get on an event after you sign up, and you meet 5 to 7 singles for 5 to 7 minutes at a
Okay.
time. And then after each conversation that you have live and in person virtually, so, we're talking in person right now, but we're not in the same room. You do that on Candid. And then if you would like to continue the conversation with the person that you just met, you answer yes, that you would like to continue the conversation. And then after you meet your 5 to 7 singles, you receive a list of matches. If both people say yes, they would like to continue the conversation, then you're able to chat with them via Candid. And it's not necessarily a chat room, but it's just a messaging portal in the platform that we've created. We don't share any of your information. All they see is your first name and the area that you live. So it's really up to the singles from there to make the first move, essentially. We like to say that we're just the ones introducing you.
So they go on the app. You have events happening every other week regionally. Are they also broken up by age and trying to get people at least within similar cohorts together?
Yes. So we host at least at minimum 2 events a week based on your different age ranges. And our typical customer, our typical user is 18 to like the 45-ish age. So we have events broken up for that age range. But yes, to answer your question, you can see the age group of the event before you sign up. And then you can also see we host 2 types of events: open to all, which is open to everyone across the country. And then as well, events regionally. So, the Northeast will have an event one night, the Midwest another night. We have found that a lot of people like the open to all events where there's no geographical boundaries, because what the feedback we get from the men is, maybe I travel for work often, and so I like meeting people who I could potentially meet when I'm traveling. So um, that is kind of how we do that as far as breaking up the events. But yes, you're aware of everything that you are about to partake in before you sign up, so you can choose.
And what's been the feedback so far about the events, and what are people saying?
Yeah, it's been fun. We've had relationships form. People seem to enjoy it, or at least they tell us that they do. One thing that was fun about Candid is it happened very organically, and we were able to build it with our users in mind. So, over the past few years, and I'm sure we'll get into
Hmm.
this, as we were building the actual platform, we were able to get live feedback from our users as we were making adjustments. So, a lot of the features that we have implemented were suggested to us by the people who are using the platform. So, one thing that's unique about Candid is, like I mentioned, there's no swiping and no profiles. So it's different than your typical dating app where you can sit and essentially shop for a date. On Candid, you're live and in color. So you get to show up as yourself, present yourself as you are, and receive the person that you're meeting as they are as well. And you're not limited to just a photo and a list of bullet points of someone's personality before you decide whether or not you'd like to talk to them.
Yeah. So what I see with Candid is that you're trying to meet like a gap here, where it's, I know the dating apps have their place in, I know people who have met on the apps and that it works for some folks, but I know there's a lot of folks who are just don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, or they're on multiple apps and they're just frustrated and they're not getting results, or they're not meeting people, or they feel that they're just being overlooked on these apps and on these
Yep.
platforms. And then there's another bucket of people who don't have enough folks within their city or their geographic region that they've met. They're trying to get out, they're trying to connect, but it doesn't seem to be working. They're just not meeting anybody. And so I see Candid kind of sitting somewhere in the middle, is trying to meet this need of, let's just get Catholic young adults to meet, to connect, and give them an opportunity to do so in a relatively low risk environment.
Yeah. Yeah, we love facilitating introductions. We're very transparent with what you're going to get whenever you sign up for an event. And that is just to show up, as I said, as yourself and present yourself as you are. And so we've had some feedback. A gentleman told us once, the dating apps aren't necessarily for me as far as the photos and the swiping, but I love that I have the opportunity to show my personality right off the bat to someone, and really able to share his
Yeah.
gifts right off the
Yeah.
bat. So he doesn't have to worry about being, filtered through.
Right.
You can just be
Well,
yourself.
I mean, so part of the struggle with the dating apps is that they do favor folks who are more photogenic, folks who are just more
Mhm.
physically attractive, because they're just two dimensional, and that all you get is that picture. So I can see
Yeah.
Candid being something of that nature, where it's like you can show off your personality, you can crack some jokes, you can do things like that.
Yeah.
But what of the critique that maybe Candid or speed dating would just um, work better for the extroverts in the room, or the bubbly personalities in the room, as opposed to the
Yeah.
quieter folks?
Sure. I would say that you're at an advantage if you are, like you described, a quieter person on Candid, because while maybe on a traditional speed dating event in person, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of distractions. There's different people to look at, different people to talk to. When you're on Candid, you totally have the attention of the person that you are being matched with at the time. And so that is your 5 minutes to not necessarily, I, I don't want to say it's your 5 minutes to take and show off, but you can command the room, so to speak. Like, you don't have to worry about anyone else talking over you, or, somebody who's maybe naturally draws attention taking anything away. It's your 5 minutes, and you can do with it what you wish. So I would think, and again, feedback that we've gotten, that for someone who is more like in that personality style, Candid would be a perfect place for
Okay.
them.
And how many people are you meeting in a Candid event? How many dates are you going on?
You meet 5 to 7
Okay.
dates.
Each for 5 to 7 minutes.
Mhm.
So the whole event lasts
Yeah,
an hour or so. So yeah.
about an hour.
And then you
Yeah.
click yes on some, they click yes on some. and then
Mhm.
whoever you match with, you have the opportunity to keep talking with afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have on our in our little portal that you are able to log into when you have an account with us, you have different tabs on the side. And one of those tabs is your matches
Hmm.
tab. And so if you click that, you are able to see your matches and chat with them kind of like any messaging app that you would have. It's just like that, where you can choose to keep the conversation
Yeah.
going in whatever medium you prefer.
I can imagine, I don't know, I'm just feeling it. Like maybe some people are like anxious thinking about like doing a speed dating thing. They're like, this is way out of my comfort zone or something, you know? And I can see that maybe people are just coming into it with a lot of expectation. Um, but I would imagine that not everybody's matching after every event, right? And so like what happens then? How do you what do you what advice do you give to folks who do one of these things and they've tried but they didn't match with anybody and they don't get any follow updates on it?
We have actually just implemented after Seek, which is like you mentioned where we met. We have the option if someone chooses to, after an event that they don't have any matches, they're able to sign up for a date coaching session. If it's just some people maybe don't have anybody to talk to about this, or maybe they have some questions, tips, tricks, icebreakers, something that they want to just talk to someone about, but maybe they don't feel comfortable talking to their friends about it or their family, or like I mentioned, maybe they just don't have anybody around. We are able to match you up with one of our date
Hmm.
coaches, and from there you can build a little bit of confidence. But also, I would say not to be discouraged if that is you, if you don't have any matches, because at the end of the day, we hope that you only match with one person that you end up spending your life with in the long run. And every opportunity up until then is just reps. And I think we talked about that at
Yeah, we
Seek.
did.
Like every conversation with someone, whether it's around dating, what like has the label of like conversation to date, or it's just someone that you're talking to on the street, like every conversation you have with someone is a rep,
Hmm.
right? And especially in the conversation of dating. But it's awesome to have conversations, learn yourself, learn how you talk to people. Did I say something that made me feel silly, or did I say something that I liked, and I want to like keep a conversation on a certain topic because I feel comfortable talking about that. It's really a tool, I would say, for people who maybe want to build some confidence and not to get discouraged if you don't match with one of the 5 people that you talk to or the 7 people that you talk to, because at the end of the day, you can maybe just consider it a blessing that you have one less person to worry about whenever you're searching for a spouse.
That's an encouraging way of saying it. There's a lot of people, so
Yeah.
one
So
less
many
off of
people.
the 3 billion potential matches. Well, it's not three
Yeah.
billion because they're not all your age. Um,
Yeah. But I mean, think about how many people like say that you are out having happy hour or
uh-huh.
something with your friends and you see a room of single people. Not every single one of those people that you could potentially talk to you're gonna click with.
That's right.
So same thing with Candid, right? Like you could talk to 5 people and maybe it just wasn't there, but every conversation you can get something from for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I think that it's just, as you said, reps. That's the word. So I think even for
Yeah,
folks who maybe don't have a whole lot of experience dating, it's a good opportunity just to break the ice, just feel comfortable, start meeting people. And like we said, in a very low risk situation. And it's great that you guys offer the coaching on the other side of that. If people are interested to be able to get some real clear tips about what to do, what they can do to improve their circumstances, or just to be able to talk to somebody about the discouragement that they felt, on the other side of that.
totally.
So let's talk about like, okay, some do's and don'ts. Okay.
Okay.
Speed dating. I view it. I mean, I know speed dating is really low key. 5 to 7 minutes, and then going into what would be a first date or first, whatever you want to call that afterwards. But how best to approach that 5 minutes? Like, what do you recommend? Like, what's the top 5 things that somebody listening needs to go into that first 5 date speed dating thing with, like, ready to go?
Yeah, I would say first have a few conversation topics because it always is good whenever you're a little bit
Yeah.
prepared just for anything. So I would say help yourself by having a few points of conversation that you like to make. And then
Like
I
what?
would
Like you
say
want to talk about work, or you want to talk about faith, or you want to talk about a movie or some silly anecdote? Like you want to be ready for, like what? Like what?
yeah, just any conversation that you feel comfortable having, like maybe something that you're knowledgeable about, or that um, ask questions. Like, say, I want to go in asking 2 questions to the person about
Hmm.
themselves. Like, people love to talk about themselves as well, especially if you're ever stuck. Maybe if you're nervous on a date or something, people love to talk about themselves. So asking someone about themselves is always a like safe bet for anyone who needs a tip there. But yeah, I would say have a few of those just laid out as a safety net to make sure. But work is always, something you could talk about. Some people don't like to talk about work because they like to talk about their hobbies. So maybe have a hobby or two that you want to work into a conversation. Um, Maybe you have really fun plans to go to a baseball game, or something, anything like that. That lighthearted conversation. I would say definitely take the pressure off. If I could give one tip to anybody, we can totally build pressure in our head, especially in our
Yeah.
Catholic dating circles. We talked about this too at Seek, like the pressure is on, and it doesn't have to be, because at the end of the day, like we said, there's going to be one person and you're going to meet them, and that's going to be it. And so everyone between now and then is an experience and an opportunity to learn about yourself, learn about people, learn about what you like. And so I would say go into each conversation asking yourself, what can I give to this 5 minutes? Like, what gifts has God given me that I can share with this person? And then what can I receive from them, not for who they could be for me, but just for who they are? And then evaluate whether or not you think that those gifts could potentially be compatible for another conversation, not even to date long term or leave as boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever you want to say. But do I want to have another conversation with this person? Yes or no? That's the only thing you should be
Well,
asking.
I remember at Seek when you did the speed dating event, the live speed dating event, which was just great. You had like 2,000, over 2,000 people in that room. It was packed. It was insane. How many were signed up? There was a lot more signed up that couldn't come in. It was like,
Yeah, we ended up having over 3,500 people
yeah,
sign up, which was
incredible.
incredible.
Absolutely
Yeah.
incredible. And so big room, 2,000 plus, it was packed. It was like
Crazy.
Sunday mass, Christmas mass, at church. Like it was like standing room only is
Yes.
what it was. But
Yes.
you go up and you give like a 10-minute little kind of spiel about what it is, what it isn't. And you put up this slide, and it was hilarious about just the pressure as we're talking about right now. And that a first date does not equal engagement is what the meme or whatever you had up there
Yeah.
showed. And the room just erupted. It was like, yes. It was like
Yes.
you just put your finger on something that everybody had been feeling, but nobody had articulated. And I get
Yeah.
it. I mean, listen, I travel, I give talks on dating. I'm not in the business of wanting people just to date for the sake of it, or casual dating, or throwing spaghetti
Sure.
against the wall type of thing. But
Yeah.
that there is intentionality with this, that we're trying to move towards marriage. Absolutely. That's what dating is. But you can't go into every first date with this pressure that this is going to be the one. It's
Yeah.
just way, way, way too much, way too much. So how do we walk away from that just a little bit? Like how do we maintain the intentionality, but tone down the intensiveness of it?
Yeah. I would say that it's safe to assume most of the time when we're talking about Catholic dating circles. Now, if we were on a secular podcast and we were talking about like life in the
Yeah.
wild of,
This
I
isn't Call Her
might
Daddy,
be
all
with,
right? So
no, okay, thank you. That's literally what I was
this
going to say.
isn't.
Like,
We're,
if
we're
we
not on
were
that podcast. So it's
that's not, no, we already know that if we're listening to a Catholic podcast on Catholic dating, that we have intentionality
yeah.
already, right? Like, we already recognize the weight of what a sacramental marriage is. That's a serious thing. That's important to keep at the forefront. And I think as Catholics, we do a really good job of that, single Catholics especially. And so we understand what that means. So we don't have to build on that necessarily, like add pressure to that, because it is already such a heavy thing and it's a serious thing. Knowing that we're all on the same
Hmm.
page, we don't have to go into every conversation expecting it to be, like you said, a marriage. And so I don't know what you need to tell yourself. I think I've heard different people talk to themselves, like hype themselves up in different ways based on like your mindset. But it's okay to enjoy a conversation with someone without expecting anything to come from the
Hmm.
conversation. And then maybe it will. But maybe it won't, and maybe it's just two people in passing having a nice talk. And so I think understand that we're all already on the same page about the fact that marriage is serious, and then just enjoy one another. Like, it is a really beautiful thing to enjoy, like I mentioned earlier, the gifts that can be given and exchanged in a conversation without you can still be intentional. You can still be intentional in a conversation like that. And so I think everyone kind of has their own experiences that shape the kind of pressure that they put on themselves. But that's what I would
All
say
right.
in
That's
regards
great.
to that.
All right.
Yeah.
So I interrupted you earlier. The first thing you said was come prepared for a conversation, have a couple anecdotes, have some topics ready to go so that if it stalls or it gets a little dry, you have some things that you want to pull out of the
Yeah.
holster. Second thing here is go into it with not like a lot of expectation, just go into wanting to enjoy meeting new people and having conversations and let that
Yeah.
be the end. And as you said earlier, the only thing you want to get out of this is would you want to say yes to continuing a conversation with this person? And if the answer
Right.
is yes, then great, then you can match with that person. What
I would
else?
also challenge you. I would also challenge you to, if you are someone who's, super serious, and I get it too. Like, maybe you feel like you should have already had a long relationship or something. Like, I understand. I've been there. I have skin in the game. Like, my skins are on the walls, if so to
Bless
speak.
you.
I've been there. Um, but what I would say too is, if you are screening people, first of all, people will know that. People will recognize that it comes off as ingenuine. And I would challenge you to really reflect, since we are talking about sacraments. Like, are you coming in with the mindset of already making a decision about someone? They have to be this, and that, and then not even giving them a chance to be themselves before you decide, that you're not interested in a conversation. I think you could get to a point where you're essentially using someone, or totally prejudging them by what can this person be for me. If this person isn't showing up as this and that, then I'm going to discard them completely. I think that can also turn into something that maybe you want to, make sure that you watch out for in your own
Yeah.
heart, because I know how it gets when you feel the pressure, or maybe all your friends are getting engaged or married, and you feel like you're just ready to go. um
Well,
Candid makes you see the person in front of you, and I think that that's really important.
would you mind sharing a little bit of your dating journey?
Sure, yeah. I Let's see, where do I start? I was engaged to a man out of college, and we had been in a long relationship. I would say we dated in college, and then a little bit after we got engaged, and shortly into planning that wedding, it was just very clear that he was not the man that God had called me to. And so we called off the wedding, we unbooked the
Mm,
church, we canceled the
that's so
flowers.
tough.
We had
Yeah.
everything planned. um, and I would say that that was like a new beginning
And
for
did you
me,
guys
as
break
far
up
as,
also at that stage? Yeah.
yeah,
So it
yeah, yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
just you
Yes.
postponed the wedding, it was also that you just knew it was time
No.
to move on.
Yeah, we canceled the wedding and then broke up. Yeah, we didn't talk. I think probably we talked longer than we should have. Whenever you end something like
Yeah.
that, it's over,
Yeah.
like, there's
That's hard.
no turning
Yeah.
back. But we were somewhat young. Anyway, yeah, so that really started a new chapter in my life. Of I was very angry, but also I knew that I wanted the Lord to rebuild my heart in a way that would be prepared for the man that I would eventually marry, and rebuild it in a way that would be ready to receive the man that God had for me. Because at this point, right, like, I had called off a wedding, I thought I was going to marry someone, and now I don't know what that looks like, because what I thought it looked like just fell into a million
Right.
pieces. And so eventually I started dating again, and that's how Candid started, actually. Just seeing the state of the dating game, and like how our Catholic culture is in dating, was a kind of a shock. The pressure was immense. And Candid, the first dating event that we had, was just a way to bring some lightheartedness and
Mm-hmm.
fun. And at the time, simultaneously as I was hosting these like
And
speed
those
dating
were live
events,
speed dating. That's before the app, right?
This was a
They were virtual.
live
The
but
virtual.
virtual.
Okay.
Yeah, we used a platform that we found online, and that was that. Um, we ended up building, like I said, Candid, and that was a whole process too. But I met the man that I'm now married to, and he's incredible.
You
My
met him
lovely husband
through one of
Logan.
the speed dating events
No, but
as you were working through it. Yeah.
as
Yeah.
we were working through that, yeah, and as I was, taking on the dating culture, ended up meeting him on the side and dating him, and we got married, and he's incredible. But there was such a journey from calling off a wedding that you're in the middle of planning to meeting the person that you're spending the rest of your life with, and I had to learn a lot. And I will tell you that the reason that I'm so passionate about this philosophy is the first date that I went on with my husband was the first date I had ever been on, where I said, I'm just going to go into this date as myself. What gifts can I offer this man for the next hour? And what can I receive? Like, Lord, what gifts have you given him that he can share with me in this hour? I don't want anything from him. I don't want to expect anything of him. I just want to receive him for who he is and give him who I am for the next hour, and what that means on a first date. Um, and it
And it
worked.
worked.
It was great. It was a great mindset. Turns out it was a great,
Yeah.
mindset to go into a first
Right.
date, and there was no pressure. And then afterwards, I thought, I would be open to having another conversation with him. And then 6 months later, we officially started dating. There was a few. We were both in our busy season of work, so we had a little lag there. But in total, 12 months after we met, we were
Wow.
engaged. So,
That's
yeah,
incredible. Thank you for sharing
yeah,
that.
yeah,
I know it's important
absolutely.
for people to hear the context of this. It's not like this just comes out of thin air and you're like, oh, this is a fun idea. Let's tackle this. But as you indicated,
No, actually, yeah, the opposite. Honestly, the opposite. And I didn't mean to
no,
cut
you're
you
fine.
off. Just that was the most absolutely agonizing heartbreak of my life, for obvious
Yeah.
reasons. But I'm so grateful for the time that I was able to spend with our Lord in prayer, and just I would not have had that time with Him had I not experienced that. So
If you've been enjoying this conversation with Taylor O'Brien and are wondering how I can continue to progress in my dating game, then I want to encourage you to please check out Dating Well. It's my online course that takes you by the hand through all the ins and outs of the modern dating scene. Head on over to drmariosacasa.com to get more information, to get registered, and join the hundreds of students who have already signed up and have been able to increase their confidence with dating. Students who complete Dating Well report almost a 50% increase in their confidence when it comes to dating. We're not giving any sort of fluff, giving you clear answers, clear guidance of how to be able to navigate the dating scene in today's world, which just seems so complicated, so complex. So head on over to drmariosacasa.com and register for Dating Well today. If you don't mind sharing, I know we're talking about speed dating, but for folks who
yeah,
are engaged, to call off an engagement is a very courageous thing. That's a big,
thank you.
big, big task because most people are like, we're already here, let's just keep going. But
Mm,
what, without sharing any specifics, like what would you say to somebody who's having some of those thoughts? Like, when did you know that it was that definitively was like, this is a mistake, let's not keep going on this train?
yeah. I think, in short, probably when I lost peace, when I lost my peace about it, which probably should have happened sooner. My dad said something to me, and he's just a great dad, so he wasn't fishing for anything when he said this. But when we got engaged, he said, "I just want you to know, no matter the money that's spent, no matter how far into this you get, until you are at the altar and you're saying your vows, this can be done. So if at any point you feel uncomfortable, please don't be afraid to come to us." Um, and I appreciated that because it was essentially kind of like him giving me permission to make sure that I was really ready for something like this, and that this was really the person. Probably looking back, he probably knew, and we don't have to get into
Yeah,
all of that,
it's okay.
but your
You're
family sees a lot.
that they do.
Um, and they know you a lot of times in this situation better than you know
Right.
yourself. I would say, especially even more so now after being married, there's a difference between doubt in like the future and what the future holds, and doubt in a decision that you're about to make. Like those two, the movements of the Holy Spirit and those two uh, nuanced things are very different. And since I did end up getting married, I felt very clearly the difference in those. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can still feel the difference in
Yeah.
those. And one mindset I had was I was just nervous for all of it. Like I think at the time I wasn't able to probably articulate it as well as I can now because I was in
Sure.
it. But I would say your gut, listen to that. And if you're nervous about the marriage or the person or situations, like handling situations in life with the person, that might be an indicator that you need to take a second look. But if you are just nervous for the
Mm-hmm.
unknown,
And just general cold
um,
feet. That's not the same thing.
just
Yeah.
general, yeah, not the same thing. Just general. I remember being nervous because I had never been married
Yeah.
before, and like, what does this look like? Like, how are you going to know, when it's time to buy a house or when it's time to buy a car? That's different than being nervous. Like, is this person going to be with me through thick and thin?
Yeah.
Those two things were very drastically different in the two situations. Fortunately, unfortunately, I was able to be in. So there's a peace in the unknown whenever you're about to marry someone, that it's a good sacramental
Yeah.
marriage. And then there's not a lot of peace in the other direction. So I would say, if to answer your question, if right now, if you're hearing me talk, if I'm
Hmm.
talking to you, like, you just know it. So I would say don't be afraid to make a decision that you need to make, and that you will be blessed for that, because like you said, it is really hard. Um, but there is no amount of money that's been spent
Mm-hmm.
now. Like, if it's like you said, if there's someone who, we're already really far into this, and like, what about the dress, or what about
Right.
this or that, or the family that's already booked the flights, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
So
No, it doesn't
it
matter.
doesn't.
Wow.
And the people will go back to living their lives. They
Mm-hmm.
will. They'll go back to living their lives, and everyone will, it'll be another Monday the following weekend, and people will be focused again on themselves. So if you are getting married with anybody else in mind other than you and the good Lord and the person that you're about to marry, just take a second look.
Thanks, Taylor, for sharing all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Really, really
absolutely.
appreciate it.
Happy
I'm
to.
sure it's
Yeah,
helping people who are listening.
sure.
So let's bring this back to dating then. That was, it was a wonderful, I'm so grateful you shared all of that. It's so beautiful and people
Yeah,
need
of
to
course.
know. So I really want to spend some time on that because I think you can offer some advice that are going to help people.
Sure.
You break up the engagement, you get back into, give some time to heal your heart, and then you get back into the dating
Mm-hmm.
game and you're like, whoa, like what's going on here? And
Yeah.
there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of things that you're struggling with that you're seeing. So you say we got to do, the answer to this is these virtual speed dating events, which again is trying to make things low key, reduce the pressure, a mindset even that you yourself learned to adopt when you met your current husband, as you indicated. And as we've been saying this whole time, is you can enter into these first dates or these conversations with just that, with just an openness to have a conversation, openness to be able to engage. Now, we've been talking a lot about expectation and a lot about pressure. Are you seeing like commonalities between men and women, or what feedback are you getting in terms of what you're hearing, like in terms of how people are approaching these things, or where pressure may emerge from one side or the other?
Yeah. I would say there we do definitely see patterns. And I think sometimes too that can be split off between the age gaps too. So you have men and women that obviously act differently, but then also the young men
Mm-hmm.
are having different traits than the men who I would say are in their
Mm-hmm.
30s. Um, Totally different generations, also totally different means of technology. Like the kiddos that, well, they're not kids, sorry, the young adults that we were with at Seek. I just showed I feel a little bit older now that I said
The
that,
Gen
but
Zers,
they,
we all love them.
they, yeah, they grew up so differently with us because they had
Mm-hmm.
technology. Our generation did not until college, really, and after college. And so, um, I would say one thing that we saw a lot with the men at Seek in that younger generation is that there is a just very crippling fear of rejection and failure. And it was really sad for me to see because, and not to pick on the men because
We'll
I'm
pick on the
very
women
pro
in a little
men.
bit. It's all right. We're
Okay,
equal
perfect. Good.
opportunity pickers. Okay, that's
Okay,
what
good.
this podcast is. All right, so don't you worry about it.
Yes.
All right, We'll pick on the
No,
women in
okay,
just a
good.
second. It's all right.
Now that we have that clear, um, there are women who just were waiting, hoping, praying that a man would come talk to them like they were ready. And the men were so afraid that I don't know if they thought the women would just look at them in the face and walk away or laugh. That's kind of the way that they acted. But there's just a fear of rejection. And I think it was you and I that were talking. There's a certain rite of passage that a man goes through, putting himself out there, asking a girl on a date, or just having a conversation. You're going to get some jokes from your
Hmm.
buddies. That's just life. I mean, come on. Like, that's
Yeah.
everyone. And you're going to get a little nervous. Your palms might get a little sweaty. I'm not a man, but I can imagine. And just from talking to the thousands of men that I've talked to about this, like, that's a good thing. That's okay. You should be talking to women. And if you avoid women thinking that you're going to just wake up one day, see a pretty woman that you want to be your wife, and you're going to talk to her and that's going to be it, you are sadly
Mm.
mistaken. So get your reps in now so that when that woman does come, you are ready to talk to her and you are confident and you feel like you can really be sure that you want to continue the conversation with her. Not that you need to know that she's your wife right off the bat, but um, it's a good thing to learn how to speak to women. Like, that's not a hyper masculine
Mm-mm.
thing. That's not a toxic masculine thing. That's just life. Like, you should be able to have conversations with all types of people, but especially
Yeah.
women.
Now, so to
And
that end, like I know guys. We know that a marker of this generation is anxiety. That's
yeah,
shown. That's proven. That's part of. That's just part and parcel of Gen Z at this point. Is that anxiety is present, and with that is perfectionism and overthinking, and we're seeing that among men and women, girls and boys in this generation. So we know that that's there. But I also do think that you talked about the toxic masculinity piece. But
mhm,
what we're seeing even in trends is that guys have a hard time talking to girls in person because girls, what we're seeing, at least, and maybe not be across the board, maybe not on college campuses, but at least what we're seeing, at least society wise, is that they have a harder time appreciating a conversation from a guy. Like they might be like, "Why are you talking to me? What's your motive here?" So I had a guy that I was coaching, and I in one of our previous episodes gave some recommendations about how you can what things to talk about, like where to focus on a
mhm,
conversation, how to start a conversation. And he said he tried one of those tips. He saw a girl, he was waiting in line at the subway or something, and or the train, and he saw she had like this like very ornate necklace, and it was like this crucifix or something that, and he caught his eye, and he just turned to her and was like, "Ah, it's a really pretty necklace, like tell me more about that." And she was like, "That's a very personal question." Was her response. And so she shut it down immediately, and she didn't want to engage. And he was like, "Oh, okay." Now, I mean, I don't know how he came across. He's just relaying the story to me. I don't know the full details of it. I get that, but that story I've seen and have heard is becoming common also. And so I
yeah.
guess if we do pick on the girls a little bit, like how do we, like what, like how do we rectify that aspect of this whole process?
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword, because on one hand, I understand as a
Yep.
female, I understand the guard in the wild, so to
Yes,
speak, that you might have
for
up,
sure.
like if you are somewhere like on a subway. Understand that you are looking for ulterior
Hmm.
motives. However, in a normal setting, you have to think, or at least you should be thinking, like, wow, this man, and there would be women that would say, I should not have to feel privileged that this man, came to talk to me or whatever. All that aside, if we're talking about dating and in dating, that man had to build up the confidence, think of something to say, approach you, whether or not you presented yourself as approachable, which a lot of we can get to that
Hmm.
too, because we want to know why men aren't coming to talk to us, and we walk around like with our arms crossed, head down in a phone, or we give them no signal that they should come or invited to approach us. But you have to think about the steps that that man went through to come up and talk to you. And the very least that you can do is engage in a pleasant conversation. And then we wonder why men, like the trends in men, are going how they are, but we absolutely crush
Hmm.
them anytime. Like this, guy wanted to start a conversation with a woman, and that didn't have to be, maybe it would have turned into a further conversation, or maybe it could have just been a pleasant exchange.
Right.
But you crushed that by making him feel stupid for even
Right.
commenting.
Right.
And then also, I think we need to be, maybe more so in the younger generation too. Like, I get it, again, whenever you're older and you're out in the wild or whatever, we need to be mindful of the way that I talk to this man, whether he will be able to bounce back. First of all, men are strong.
Mm-hmm.
They're made for battle,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're scarring him at 10 a.m. is probably by lunchtime with his buddy is going to be gone. Okay. Like, you're not going to ruin his day by declining a date. However, the way that you interact with him could potentially be the way that he heads into his next conversation with a woman, right? Like, we want to be upset in our girl talk and circles about how men are this and that, but we don't do anything to help ourselves by speaking kindly or kindly declining. There was one guy who at Seek actually messaged us and said, I got a girl's number and I was excited to text
Mm-hmm.
her. And she had blocked me on everything when we got home. So, like, they followed each other on social media. They followed each other on, I don't know, TikTok or whatever. And they had been exchanging texts. But then instead of just saying, hey, I'm not interested, she totally wiped herself from his,
Digital world.
like, yeah.
Wow.
And that's just that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
I go to bat for men all the time for that, because there's just no reason for that. Because now that man is going to second guess maybe talking to somebody else, because why couldn't she? Men like direct ladies. After being married too, I can confidently say men are way more direct than we are, just by nature.
Yes.
And maybe if we say something to them, to us it sounds rude to be so
Mm-hmm.
direct, but that's just how men talk, most of
Mm-hmm.
them. Sometimes. Anyway, instead of just telling him, hey, I'm not interested,
Right.
thank you, and him moving about his day, you drug it on for
Right.
weeks or 4 days.
Right.
So
Okay. You're right there. Yeah, you're right.
it makes me
You're
so
right.
sad. Like,
Do you need a sip of water or something? I could see that you're getting heated up over there, Taylor.
I do. Sorry. Wow. I don't know if I've ever gotten that
Yeah.
fired up, but it's just
I got a
like,
fan on in my room, but that's not going to help you in Texas.
there's just no reason. There's just no reason for that.
All
Anyway, and
right.
again, you can always flip the sides, well, they do
Yeah,
this
yeah,
and
yeah,
they
yeah,
do
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, for sure. But as much as whatever domain of responsibility that we have, like, let's just take ownership over our actions. And
Exactly.
you are absolutely right. Listen, I'm not a woman, obviously, and I don't know the fear that goes around.
Sure.
I interviewed
Of
Maria
course.
Mitchell in a previous episode,
Uh-huh.
and that was a great episode. I encourage everybody to listen to it. And she said, when girls go on first dates, I mean, they're sharing their location with their friends, and the question that they're asking is, are you going to kill me? And like,
It,
that's a real thought that's there. And
it
most
is.
guys don't walk around every day worrying that somebody's going to kill them.
It's
So
true.
just let's be aware of that, gentlemen, in terms of even when it comes to presentation and not coming across as being overly aggressive, but just trying to have a nice conversation. But recognizing that, okay, for a woman, she may be feeling that, but that doesn't mean then that she can't just at least be polite to the guy and at least open up a conversation. And if she feels even creepy, it's like, all right, then you draw the line, firmly.
Mhm.
But to just offer the rejection right out of the gates can be difficult. So yes, what we're saying here is, just so we're abundantly clear, we're not picking on any side. All right. For anybody listening, we're encouraging growth on both sides here. And wanting to encourage the guys to be a little bit more courageous, overcome some of their anxiety, get comfortable,
Yeah.
get some reps, have some conversations, get comfortable doing it. It's a skill. Talking is a skill that can be acquired like any other skill.
Yes.
And same goes for the ladies, to be open to having conversations. Certainly you have to have some standards, you can't just date anybody, of course,
Yeah, yeah,
but at the
absolutely.
same time, even navigating those and not trying to have too much. So when it comes to, like, all right, so we've been talking about pressure, we're talking about expectation, talking about going into first dates with some conversation points, some things ready to go. I guess, what about, like, because I would imagine with the speed dating and even with the first date, the first impression is important. Like, what goes into, in your disposition or your thinking here, like, what goes into a good first impression with somebody? And is that
And
overrated? I guess, and is that overrated, especially for women? Is another question that I would ask.
no, we can try to talk and pretend like it is and that we shouldn't be worried about first impressions, but the reality of the world that we live in, like if you're not aware, the reality is that they matter.
Hmm.
And I will stand by that. And I'm not to say that you can't recover or that you should put all your eggs in that basket, but I think they do matter. The way that you eye contact is big, is important for me, especially out in the real world. Not virtually, but presenting yourself in a way that, like as women, we wear sweatpants a lot or whatever, but like just basic presentation. I was watching a video the other day that it was a video that like showed people from the 90s, and the comments were like how they looked like they were so put together. They were no different than we are. They just had on clothes, like they just had on nicer clothes. And so I would say that also makes you feel a little bit elevated when you are wearing something that you feel a little bit more put together. So ladies, that might be jeans and a top instead of skirt, instead of like a skirt. I was going to say skirt because that's what I wear for work, like my little athletic skirt, my tennis skirt.
Short skirt mix.
Yeah,
Sport.
yeah. So putting something on that's a little bit more elevated, having your hair done or something, can build confidence. Like that just in itself already builds a little bit of confidence. Guys, maybe wearing a collared shirt or brushing your hair,
Hmm.
women can tell whenever you try a little bit, and
Although the floppy hair is a thing in Gen Z.
that's true.
I tell my boys that.
So what happens for your
I don't know.
generation?
I tell that to my 6-year-old. He's so funny. He plays basketball for his high school, and I say everybody's got floppy hair on the team. He's like, Dad, no, nobody has floppy hair. I'm like, he does, everybody does. He's like, Dad, you're being ridiculous. I'm like, every Gen Z dude has floppy hair or the mullet. Like that's that's how this is.
That's so true.
he
That's so
hates
true.
he hates it. He's like, Dad, you're the
It,
worst.
it is a style. It is
But
a
it is a
style.
style. So, all
Um,
right, gentlemen, even that, just like, I don't know, dressing it up a little bit, but like going into, whether it's a first date or whether it's a speed dating event, certainly you want to be able
yeah.
to have the right presentation so that you're making
Hmm.
a good first impression.
Yeah.
Because
And you feel more confident. The more confident I feel about myself, the more confident I'm going to show up. That's just
absolutely,
how it works.
yeah, I mean, everybody's
So,
got the shirt that they take an extra look in the mirror and they're like, yeah, that's good. Yeah, I look good.
exactly.
Like, it's all right. That's not vanity. I hope not.
No, it's
Maybe the priest.
no, yeah.
It
It could
can
be
be. It
quickly, but
can be.
not yet.
But but there's a point where you want to look good, especially if you're going to go into an event like this, where yeah, you want to make a good first impression. Uh,
Yeah.
but again, not putting too much pressure on yourself. That's like
No, yeah, no.
that's what I'm trying to tell
Just
people.
being confident. Yep.
All right. So, Taylor, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate what you've been
Yeah.
offering so far. Anything else? Any other thoughts that you have about people kind of going into first dates, or what they should be aware of, or going into even speed dating? Like, what are some other practices or do's and don'ts here? What are some don'ts? I guess we've been talking about both, but yeah, any other thoughts you
Sure.
have?
I would say, just as a side note, that you can look at every relationship, especially like just every marriage that you know. Like everyone is the same here. Like we all start on the same playing field, whether or not you feel like you have like personality quirks or whatever. Like everyone has that one thing about them that they're insecure about. And so I would say everybody that you see dating has had to go through some type of awkward stage, right? Like it's about reps, and you're not going to hit a home run every single time. But don't let that discourage you. Like it's, again, I hate to say rite of passage, but like some awkwardness is just part of life. Like it's not, I know we live in like this Instagram
Hmm.
world, but that's just not reality. And so rest assured that everyone has felt silly before talking to the opposite sex. Everyone has used a line that did not land, right? Like everyone has been embarrassed about something. So don't think that it's just you, and release some of the pressure and you also, I think, show up better too when the pressure's off. Like obviously you want to be serious and present yourself well, but take the pressure off, and know that everyone has said something dumb in front of someone they thought was really cute before. Like it's just the reality of it. So you're not any different than anyone else who hasn't had to risk. And that's, yeah, the risk, like
And even sometimes that can
what
be
is
endearing. Like
yeah,
I think of
exactly.
Hitch. You remember? Yeah, it's
Yes,
like I love that.
perfect. Yes,
I think of that,
exactly.
and she's all upset with Will Smith at the end of the movie because she thought that everything he was doing was just some act to make her kind of fall for him. And Will Smith's
Yeah,
like, no, like that's all him. That dancing, that all
yeah,
that was all him. I
totally him.
did nothing to help him.
Yeah, yeah, and he was actually trying to take
Yeah.
it away from
Yep.
him.
And he
So
was trying
yeah,
to take it away from
just
him. Yep.
yeah,
Hmm.
it comes out in the wash. And I will say too that once you do meet the person that you end up landing on forever and ever, like you literally don't care. Like nothing else. Like you're not embarrassed. I mean, sure, maybe like you're embarrassed by something you said, but like it really doesn't matter
Yep.
anymore because you're on to the next. And then that phase of your life is over. And now you have to worry about whatever else comes in this phase of
Yep.
life. So just know that it's short lived and enjoy dating because it can be fun. Like it's supposed to be fun. Again, we're not on, like you said, call our daddy. So
No, we're definitely not on that.
it's not all the things that like maybe the world would say
Yeah,
is
that's right.
fun, but like yeah, enjoyable. It should be enjoyable to encounter others and share conversation.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody listening who just is not being asked out? Young woman just not being asked out, not being set up by friends, just finding discouragement in that space. And I know there's lots of women who feel that.
Hmm. I would say you're not alone in that, and not to be discouraged, even though that's so much easier for me to say than done. Um, I would say that there's nothing wrong with you. I would challenge you to do some inner work and see could there be any ways that I could be improving my chances of being asked out? Am I putting myself in situations where there will be other people who would ask me out? You know, like a lot of times we think that God's just going to drop this person on our doorstep and we won't have to do
Mm-hmm.
anything. Like, no, you also have to do the work. And so, maybe again not challenging you in a way that like you're not doing something
Mm-hmm.
right or that there's something wrong with you, but it's a good time to self-reflect. Dating is a lot of self. I took a lot of self inventory after that broken
Yeah, I
engagement,
bet you did.
and I learned a lot about myself and things that I did really really wrong that I did not want to take into my next relationship. But then also I made myself look inside at some of like my interior workings and like really do some reflection on where can I improve? Where am I selfish? Am I looking at the situation through the lens that I should be looking at it through? Am I having a pity party? I don't know. Um, and so I would say, first of all, put yourself in situations where you increase your chances of doing that. Um, Make sure that whenever you are out in these spaces that you are approachable, that you look approachable, that you don't, look upset or unhappy to be there. Again, whether or not you feel like that that's valid, it
Mm-hmm.
is. Like if you look upset to be there, no one is going to want to come talk to
Yeah.
you, right? And then also, I would say, come to Candid because you can meet people on Candid and then maybe you can start to flesh out some personality traits that you like, and that can lead you to, okay, maybe I really enjoy talking to guys who are into hiking.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll start hiking and I can be in a situation where I'll meet people who I enjoy the same things. I don't
Yep.
know, just different ways to put yourselves in different situations. But I would say, again, don't feel like you're alone in that. Um, and make sure that you give yourself a little bit of, I don't want to say give yourself grace because I think that's overused, but like don't be so hard on
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And then also there's a season for everything. So maybe this season for you right now, the Lord is calling you to spend time with Him, or do some work, like I said, some work on yourself. Not that something needs to be fixed, but maybe He's preparing you for something
Yeah.
greater. I know I went through a phase like that where there was just like nothing going on in my life. And I was like, Lord, I don't know what you want from me
Mm-hmm.
here. I don't feel like I'm getting asked on dates. I don't feel like I really have much going on. And it turns out that that time was just special for him and I.
Yeah.
So be aware maybe of that as well.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing all that, Taylor.
Yeah.
Well, as we're bringing this to a close, if people are interested in learning more about Candid, what's the best way to access that?
Yeah, you can go to our website that is www.candiddating.net, or you can follow us on socials. We're candid_dating on all platforms.
Wonderful. We'll have links to some of that good stuff in our show notes for people to access it.
Thank you.
And Taylor, final question to ask all my first time guests: what gives you hope?
Oh, oh, seeing people date. Honestly, like it is so. We had some events last night. We had 16 matches,
Wow, that's
and
great.
that fires me up. Not even that, like, you have to have a match for the event to be successful, but just the fact that we had so many people put themselves out there and want to meet the opposite sex. We want to foster holy families and good Catholic
Mm-hmm.
marriages. And the way that we have to do that to start is date well and be well formed people. And so to see so many people getting out there and wanting to date excites me.
Yeah,
So that gives me
that's
hope.
awesome. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Taylor, so much for taking time and joining me and my listeners on
Yeah.
the podcast. Many blessings to you and the good work you guys are doing.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.